Khary's Kitchen, powered by Food Hall, Grocery Made Greater, Ibis, a tradition of excellence, Caribbean flavors. In the heart of every kitchen, Lotus, the confidence to create. Correga Garden Supplies, Good and Natural. Indie, spice up your life, distributed by Edward B.B. Harry. Champion, always a winner, distributed by Edward B.B. Harry. Lion, the power behind our great taste traditions. Excellence Stores Limited. Live, create, do.
Hi, good day, thank you. I don't know about you, but I have a little bit of a sweet tooth. And when I think about sweets and I think about treats, I think about mommy custard and granny rice pudding. Things from my childhood. And you know me, I like to chef it up. So later on, we're gonna do something a little sweet and a little local. So I'm here at Food Hall in Piaco Plaza, where I'm gonna grab all my ingredients. I get my custard. Thanks so much for everything. Yeah, thank you. Now that I have everything I need, it's time to go to the kitchen and start cooking. Some recipes aren't just sweet, they take us back. So today we're gonna make 3 childhood classics for the family. We're starting off with a rice pudding and we're spicing it up just a little bit. And we're doing a double threat of 2 types of custard. One is sea moss, one is chocolate. So let's start cooking for this Feed the Fam. So I have some rice here that's past the usual point. So it's not al dente or to the teeth. It's very, very soft because we're making rice pudding and it's a dessert. So the first thing we're gonna do is get this pan going. And to that, we're gonna add some whole milk. Just about a cup and a half. Now we're gonna add some condensed milk for some sweetness and some richness. We're also gonna add some sugar, because rice is something that is so bland that you need to add a little extra to get that sweet flavor all the way through. Touch of cinnamon goes in. And of course, my indie garam masala, because that is where our unique flavor is going to come from. Now that the milk is simmering, we can add just a few spoons of our soft rice. This is a very forgiving dessert, and you can flavor it any way you'd like. People like the warm spices like cinnamon or clove, even nutmeg. For me, I like the garam masala because there are so many flavors in there, very earthy tones, very warm tones. So while it's simmering, I want to control my heat to ensure that I don't get any burnt cream or burnt milk, because that's not the flavor profile I'm going for. I like smooth, sweet, earthy, and delicious. For a dessert like this, you want to keep stirring to ensure that the sides don't stick, the bottom doesn't stick. Because with so much sugar in here and so many starches, it's easy to do so. And don't worry, this extra rice I have here, I can make dessert again tomorrow. I'm going to let this cook, lower my heat even further, and just let it go low and slow. And when a lot of the liquid has absorbed and everything thickens, I know it's getting to where I want it to be. All right, so while this is happening, let's get one of the custards going. First things first, let me light my fire because I'm going right in with a pan. We start this off with some whole milk once more. Two tablespoons of sugar. At this point, you also want to add your sea moss gel because you need the heat to break down the sea moss a little bit. And I love the Caribbean Flavors brand. So that's just about 2 tablespoons of sea moss. That will give you the flavor and the texture you're looking for. Now here's where it can get a little tricky. You need to keep whisking because you don't want your milk to burn and you don't want anything to stick. And in the meantime, you want to break down the sea moss gel. And don't worry, it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect because, you know, it's one of the nostalgic things that we had growing up and that was very rustic. So just like it was a tradition for me growing up, you could teach this to your children and teach them how to pass it on to theirs in time to come and keep the tradition going. I'm keeping a close eye on my rice pudding here and I see a lot of bubbles happening and a lot of action. So I want to give it a stir to make sure it doesn't stick, it doesn't burn. Meanwhile, I'm keeping my heat controlled and it hasn't gotten to temperature yet, but I just want to agitate it just a little to continue dissolving that sugar. And with more heat, the sea moss gel should start coming apart as well. Now that my sea moss has dissolved, it's about time to add the custard powder. So let me grab a spoon quickly. I need to be very measured, and this is where the technique comes in. So the recipe says about 2 tablespoons. I'll take 1 heaping tablespoon. That'll be just about the amount I need. I need to be fast with this whisk to try to avoid lumps. But if you get some lumps, that's okay. You can always whisk it out afterward. And as soon as it touches the liquid, it turns a yellow color, bright yellow color. Now it's starting to look like the custard I remember from my childhood. And with the heat, it's starting to get thick almost immediately. The more you whisk, the more you'll get some lumps out. But if you don't get all out, don't worry about it. You could always push this through a strainer, or you could use an immersion blender or a whisk in a bowl and get them out. Started on my cocoa custard pudding. Now that the sea moss custard and the rice pudding are done, it's time to work on the chocolate custard and we'll be just about ready to plate. So let's get going. We start off with whole milk as usual. One cup. You want this nice and sweet. 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. A touch of cinnamon. And of course, it couldn't be chocolate pudding, chocolate custard without cocoa powder. I don't know about you, but I like strong flavor of chocolate, so I'm gonna go in with a hefty 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder. And now we whisk, break up those lumps, get everything well incorporated before we add the custard powder itself. And this is starting to happen quickly, so I need to be quick on the draw. Roughly 2 tablespoons of custard powder is all you'll need. And your family dessert is on the brink of being ready. And don't worry, if it gets a little too thick, what you could do is just add a splash of milk and get it back to the consistency you want it to be. You'll be good to go. All right, now that this is mixed, All I need to do is let it cool, and then it'll be time to plate. All right, it's time for assembly, and we have all our elements together. So let's start off with some single serve. This nice, soft, sweet, decadent rice pudding that really just takes me back to my childhood. And who knows, maybe you could start a new tradition in your family if you haven't done it already. Next is the chocolate custard. Chocolate is something that is generally a favorite of many people. It's one of mine for sure. And then something a little bit different, you know? We used to drink sea moss punch growing up. Why not do a sea moss custard? So you have all the elements there, and if you want to garnish them, you know, feel free. Here's a little cinnamon sprinkle on this one. This one we could do some chocolate, we could do some garam masala on that one. But I have this glass here, and I want to just take things up a notch, just a little bit. So we'll start off doing a layered dessert of these classics. On the bottom layer, we'll have the rice pudding. Also, the rice pudding is the heaviest one, so it makes sense to put it on the bottom. Next, for the contrast, we could go with the chocolate custard. I'm trying my very best to be neat here to get some well-defined layers. And the thing about these desserts is that you could have them either warm or cold, whatever is your preference. I'm a cold dessert type of person. I'm clearly a messy type of person as well. And finally, the sea moss custard. One more just to even off the layers a little bit. And no meal is complete without a garnish. And since we're going sweet, I have a cookie crumble just to layer on the top, and that just took it up. And I know this is not the chefed up segment, but you know, I want to chef it up just a little bit. Allow me. Some shaved chocolate, and this is one of the local brands of chocolate. You know, we support local here. And something so simple could give this the type of elevation you'd find in, I don't know, a fine dining restaurant. So this is one way you could honor the classics and go back to your childhood a little bit for you and your family. So I'm going to take a short break, and when we come back, it's going to be Chef School followed by Chefed Up. And I'm going to take a taste of this, and I can just borrow the same spoon. Right into your childhood.
In the corner here, fresh face.
Give me a little pampering when I could get it. Get to sit down a little bit and get a little relaxation. Thanks so much, yeah? Because it's a long day. Welcome to Chef School. And you know that nice crust under a cheesecake that has that little bite? Well, we're gonna learn how to make that today. So you're gonna need 2 ingredients, but for some people it's sometimes 3. Now, some people add sugar to theirs, but I'd like to add sugar to mine. I find the digestives are sweet enough. So we have some ground digestives here and some melted butter, as simple as that. So first things first, we have roughly 2 cups of ground digestives here, that's about a pack. And then we have about 2.5 tablespoons of melted butter. I'll use just 2 tablespoons. And simple as that, you mix everything together, combine it well. And the consistency you're looking for, it starts to stick together. It gets kind of sticky and holds together. And that's what you're looking for. And this is exactly what I want. And here I have my pan that I'm going to do my cheesecake in. So you're going to do a nice even layer across the base of the pan, and at the lip of the pan you're going to just get a little bit of that rim to get that classic cheesecake look. Speaking of cheesecake, that is what is coming up in Chef'd Up, and I can't wait to show you what we are going to do. I'm making things a little bit interesting and using an ingredient you wouldn't normally find in sweets. So while I do this, just pressing out this on a nice even layer. It's very important that you get this to go evenly because you don't want your cheesecake lopsided. And once you're satisfied with your base, guess what? This goes in a 350-degree oven for 10 to 12 minutes until golden brown. And this is what you're looking for. So, in the oven it goes. All right, now it's time to gather all my ingredients for my cheesecake mix, and I'm making an avocado cheesecake. Yeah, avocado, I know. Wouldn't find it in cheesecake usually, but why not? This is sweet and loco, and that's the loco side we'll be talking about. So in a food processor, we have some mashed avocado. Let me just get this right off. Mashed avocado goes in your food processor. Followed by 2 blocks of cream cheese. I'm going to use the same spoon because they're all going to mix anyway. And this has been at room temperature so that it will soften. Right behind me, I'm going to grab some icing sugar. And of course, you know my brand, Lotus. And why I use icing sugar is because it dissolves a lot easier than the coarse granules of granulated or even brown sugar. So just about 3/4 cup for this entire mixture. I know it sounds like a lot, but when this spreads, it wouldn't be overly sweet. After that, I need some acid in this. So I'm going to take the juice of a half a lime. That will do a couple of things. It balances the flavor. It also helps to preserve that color of the avocado. All right, we don't have any seeds in there, so in that lime juice goes. And I'm going to save this because I'm going to use the lime zest in our next recipe a little bit later today. And of course, 2 eggs. That could go right in. And your eggs is what helps everything to bind together. And that's what also makes a cheesecake classify as a custard. And here we have Caribbean Flavors vanilla essence to get that warm vanilla flavor throughout, but not too much because we still want to taste the avocado, which has a delicate flavor. With that, on goes the lid. So this is becoming nice and smooth, but I need to loosen it a little bit. And I have some heavy cream. And we just need a splash. And by a splash, I mean 1/4 cup. Now, when making cheesecake, it's important not to miss the upcoming step. And just like you made an even layer of your crust, you have to make an even layer of your cheesecake mix. Now this goes in a 325-degree oven on a tray, and in that tray goes some hot water. While that is happening, I could now just clear this up and gather my ingredients for my lime zest crumble, which is going to go on top of the cheesecake later on. In this episode, we call it Sweet and Loco for a reason. We're going to use something you don't use in dessert generally to make a dessert. Why? Because we just do things different in Khary's kitchen. Mix everything together. Let me grab a bowl. For this, it's important to cut your cold butter into your flour, and you're trying to get that to a cornmeal consistency. So once everything holds together, you know you've gotten to the right stage. I'm using icing sugar again because it is way more friendly when it comes to dissolving and incorporating itself into the dough. I don't have to worry about large granules. 2 tablespoons, half cup of flour. I'm using Lotus baker's flour because we bake in. And 2 tablespoons of cold butter. To that, I'll add a pinch of pink Himalayan salt from Caribbean Flavors. And using your hands, you squeeze the butter through the flour until you get that even consistency throughout. It's important on this to work quickly because your warm hands will melt the butter, and you don't want melted butter in your dough. You want cold butter because that changes the way it interacts with the flour. So this needs to go into the oven while it's still cold. So here's what, I'm gonna put this in the fridge, let it rest a little and get back to temperature before I work with it again. That's the thing about some recipes. They have a little technical part to it, but it's nothing too hard. Now, this wouldn't be a lime zest crumble if I didn't add lime zest. So I have a rasp over here and just gently using the fine side, just gently scraping the zest part only, the green part, into my dough. And that will give it a bright, fresh citrus flavor. You don't want to go too far down into the white because that is the rind, and the rind is quite bitter. So with this, I use almost every part of the lime, so there's less wastage and more flavor. Now I just incorporate it, and this is ready to go onto a tray and into the oven. Baking takes about 8 to 10 minutes, or just until the rim is golden brown. I'll keep this cold until it's just time to go in the oven. So our cheesecake is out of the oven and has been left to completely cool. Now that the oven is free, I'm going to get my crumble to put that in the oven to get going. So this will go in at 350 degrees for 10 to 12 minutes. So my crumble was also left to cool completely, and is named crumble, so I crumble in it. And this will be the topping for dessert today. So cheesecake, salted caramel, and my crumble, so I'm ready to plate. that was a good bet. So we have a healthy slice of cheesecake there. Top it with this nice lime crumble. And the crumble has a cookie kind of texture. And then that fresh citrus taste from the lime. Can't go wrong. Some salted caramel, you know you could get this in the store somewhere. Or you could make it yourself. So just adding that savory note to the sweet flavors takes it to the next level. So if you have a sweet tooth like me, you could take things back to nostalgia for you and your family and do something that takes you back to your childhood, or you could do something that's just a step up and put a little twist with the avocado cheesecake, lime, crumble, and salted caramel to just take things up a notch. And well, there's only one thing left to do, that is taste. But thank you for joining me in Khary's kitchen.
Dance moves, dance moves. I still get a little end. I get the end.
Khary's Kitchen, powered by Food Hall, grocery made greater, Ibis, a tradition of excellence, Caribbean flavors. In the heart of every kitchen, Lotus, the confidence to create, Correga Garden Supplies, Good and Natural, Indie, Spice Up Your Life, distributed by Edward B.B. Harry, Champion, Always a Winner, distributed by Edward B.B. Harry, Lion, the power behind our great taste traditions, Excellence Stores Limited, Live, Create, Do.